Welcome everybody to the second seminar organized by Responsible Research and Innovation Project. Before starting, I'm going to give you the information about all the things that you already listen many times per week in all the teleconference, open conference that you follow. But anyway, I think it's good to remember. The first thing is that we will be grateful if you mute your microphone. However, we will be very pleased if you as well use the chat and be as active as possible. Be sure that I will give you the word. I am the moderator of the session. My name is Esteban Pelayo, the director of EURADA. And another important issue is that we are going to record, and there will be a video, and we will publish that, because we think that for the people that are not able to follow us, and as well for the legacy of the different projects, and this meeting is very important to have this afterwards available, and we will publish. So whatever you say today is going to be published. However, I don't think that we will say things that can be confidential from your side. We are very pleased, as I said, to moderate this on behalf of EURADA, because this type of project together is a meeting point between academics and regional economic practitioners, regional development practitioners, and we are able to figure out and to design the better strategies for the future. And now, today, we are going to discuss two important issues, which are the double transition of sustainability, and we have the Edinburgh meeting that we are all discussing how the big numbers, but today we are going to see how regional economic practitioners could really implement and have been implementing things connected with sustainability. And as well, we will have the enabler, that is digitalization, that will help us well to analyze specifically with good examples what we could do there. So this is a part, we are in the middle. This is a part of a session of 3 different workshops organized by the Responsible Research and Innovation Project. We discussed before how we could use maritime and coastal zone. In this one, we have, let's say, the best in class. We have very competitive regions. I think it's congratulations to all of you, because I think it's going to be a relevant seminar. And in the next one, we will discuss about regions that are not so well connected or less populated, so that they have particular challenge. However, whatever we are going to say today will be interesting for the learning of all of us and applicable to any other territory in Europe. As you could see there, the agenda, first, we will have a presentation of SeeRRI. It's a project that they have recently finished very well in Barcelona. They organized the final conference and has a lot of things to communicate. They will give us an overview of the legacy, the outcome of the project in 10 minutes. And then we will have 4 questions that we will debate with a peer analysis and speeches done by the different territories. We have here 5 territories. Overijssel, I hope I have pronounced Overijssel. I have from the Netherlands, sorry, Mr. Kuiper, for that. We have as well B30 from Catalonia. We will have Emilia-Romagna, the development agency from Emilia-Romagna. We will have as well the development agency of Grand Est, the merge of different regions in France. And we will have as well Lower Austria, the development agency of Lower Austria. So very interesting 5 territories, and we will ask them, and this is the core, let's say, of the session, we will ask them different questions, and you will be able to follow all of them. And then after each session, if you want to make some comments, we will be very pleased to answer to them. And at the end, we will have as well a buffer moment to discuss whatever you may consider in general. I think it's congratulations to all of us for the agenda that we have in the next 2 hours. So without no more introduction, I would like to give the word to Jens Ording from Norland Research Institute. We know all about SeeRRI. I think maybe we could make this type of presentation, but I'm sure that Mr. Ording will give us as well some hints about what has been achieved by SeeRRI and what are the outcomes and the legacy for other territories. Thank you very much. I see you already there connected.
Thank you, Esteban, for the introduction. According to the agenda, this is an honorary presentation of the SeeRRI project, and it is indeed an honor for me to be here since the project is now over. So I expect I will not have so many chances to present SeeRRI. So it's good to still be doing it now. And since it's over, I will be saying a little bit about the outcomes of the project. But first, a few key facts that you see here on the slide. So SeeRRI, I think many of you know SeeRRI already, but this is a project in the SwafS 14 program of Horizon 2020. Just ended October 2021. Project was slightly delayed because of the pandemic. It was supposed to be in a 2.5-year project. And I can tell you that it's really hard to complete a Horizon project in 2.5 years. So right now, if you are applying for Horizon Europe projects, I recommend that you make it longer than 2.5 years, because that has been a real challenge. There's so much to do in the project. We have 12 partners from 5 European countries. Well, actually, it's not quite true, because Israel is one of the countries, and it's not in Europe. 12 partners and 3 pilot territories, which you see on the map on the slide. So we have Nordland in Norway, which is where I am based and which is where I'm doing this presentation from right now. And then we have Lower Austria and B30, and you will hear more about those territories later today, because my colleagues are also here in this webinar, and we'll talk about those territories later. So SeeRRI, the objective of SeeRRI is given by the title of the project, which you can also see at the top of the slide. So it's about building self-sustaining R&I ecosystems in Europe through responsible research and innovation. So the view that we take of this is that a responsible, in order to be self-sustaining, a regional ecosystem must be responsible. And a responsible regional ecosystem is characterized by these 4 RRI dimensions, which I'm sure you have all heard of: responsive, reflexive, anticipative, and inclusive. Of course, we know that there are also other ways to look at RRI and other ways to break it down into components, and we also work with other ways in the project. But this is our main approach to RRI. So what we want to do, and what we wanted to do in SeeRRI, was to integrate RRI into regional development policies in regions that already have a smart specialization policy in place. That's a general idea. And soon I will talk a little bit more about how we have done that. The outcomes of the project, the SeeRRI model, and the SeeRRI implementation pathway. I will talk about that in a moment. Those are key outcomes of the project. But also an important part of the SeeRRI legacy is, of course, that we have been working with these 3 territories, and we have hopefully been able to create some change in the territories in the direction of RRI. So SeeRRI is very much about RRI in action. So we have practiced RRI with stakeholders and policymakers and planners in these 3 territories. And the last important outcome of SeeRRI is institutional change in the direction of RRI in the 12 partner organizations of SeeRRI itself. So we are working a lot with that. So of course, if we are going to tell others to practice RRI, then we have more legitimacy if we do it ourselves, also internally in our organizations. So I've selected 2 key outcomes to elaborate on a little bit. I think many of you have already seen this model before. That's on the slide now. So I will not talk about it in great detail, but this is an overview of the SeeRRI process. It consists of 3 steps. So this is something that regional planners in many different regions can use. So this is generally applicable. This model consists of 3 steps. First, in your region, you define a regional challenge together with stakeholders, and then you use a foresight process with stakeholders to develop a regional strategy. So that's the second step. And the third step is to implement the strategy with the stakeholders. So this is of course, a very simplistic, stylized model. Doesn't tell you very much in practical terms of what to do, when, and who should do it. In the last part of the project, we have been working on elaborating on this model to create something a little bit more practical, more practice-oriented, and more detailed. And what we have come up with is what you see on the slide now. So we call it the SeeRRI implementation pathway. And you can see it's closely linked to the model you saw previously. In the model before, the SeeRRI model, you move from left to right. In this model here, the implementation pathway, you move from top to bottom. So you can see, if you look carefully in the figure, you can see it consists still of the same three phases. We have co-defined the challenge. That's the upper part of this model. And then we have co-design strategy, is the middle part. And co-implement activities is the bottom part. So we have tried to create something that is inspired by a map of metro lines that cross each other in specific stations. That's the design idea here. And we are building right now also an online interactive tool where regional planners or others who are interested in this process, they can go in and they can find all the detailed information they need in the online tool by clicking on the stations in this map. So that is an important part of the legacy of SeeRRI that we are trying to consolidate right now. So I'll say a little bit about these lines. So we have line 1, line 2, and line 3. And line 1 is called the mapping line. So this is about investigating the situation in the region, the regional RRI ecosystem, like who are the actors in the ecosystem. And then we have line 2, which is the core of the SeeRRI process. This is the co-creation line. So this is the line where we do the foresight process with stakeholders to nail down a strategy for the region and implement the strategy. And then we have line 3, which is what we call a co-governance line, which involves evaluation and monitoring of the other activities in the process. So the key difference between this more elaborate model and the SeeRRI model before is that this shows that actually some of these activities can take place in parallel, right? So we have line 1, line 2, line 3. And in the online tool, we will specify exactly which actors in the region are involved at in which lines and at which stations in this process. So I hope that you find this interesting. If you are curious about that, then you can go to the SeeRRI website, SeeRRI.eu, and find more information. And we will also update it with a more interactive version of this model that you see right now. This was my very brief introduction to the SeeRRI project.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I think the pathway is very relevant for all the territories. We are using somehow ways of co-creation, but having you in Northland, and we know very well, despite you have very good partners as well, we know how well is the involvement of citizens in the Nordic countries, and I'm sure that this is a model very well elaborated that we could translate to our territories. Thank you very much, Jens. Very clear presentation. Okay, let's go to our keynote speaker. So we have Elisabetta Marinelli, who is from Research Interface, an interesting adventure that she's bringing us in order to provide support to all the regional economic practitioners. But for those that don't know her, she's a well-trained economist, and as well, she had the privilege to work during 7 years, I think, in the Joint Research Center, in where they support the implementation, the initial development and the implementation of the smart specialization strategies. So Elisabetta, during the last 10 years, she has been in the best place for regional economic development in Europe, and it's a privilege to have you here, Elisabeth, to give us the horizontal vision to initiate the debate later with the territories.
Thank you very much, Esteban. Can you hear me well? Yeah, okay, because yesterday I was having problems with my microphone. So thanks very much for your kind words. It's a pleasure to be here. I was given the task to speak very little, just 2 slides, and to introduce the debate of the twin transitions and its relationship with RRI. so that the following speakers can actually, be framed in the bigger pictures. So what do we have here? The green transition and the digital transition are hailed as our saviors, because if we're not careful and we don't transition to sustainability, we will die in a very horrible ways. Humanity is really at risk. Like, okay, now I'm exaggerating, but humanity is really at risk. So it is a matter of really physical survival. And then if we don't digitalize, meaning if we miss out on the current key industrial paradigm, then we really, which we are right now, we should be aware that Europe is not at the forefront of the digital innovation revolution, then we're missing out on the technology that will be an important driver of growth in the future. Okay, so there are very, very strong reasons to invest heavily on digital transitions and sustainability transitions. Okay, in both cases, long-term survival is at stake in different ways, but it is at stake in terms of sustainability, because there is no planet B, and in terms of digitalization, because we mustn't, we are losing the battle against other giants in the field. So this is all good, and I think we all can accept that and embrace it and be enthusiastic about wanting to concentrate our efforts in these directions. And this is more or less what the public policy documents of the European Commission say and point to. So the money is there, and especially when it comes to the Green Deal, we have to be proud, because Europe was the first big player to make such a bold statement when Trump was in power. That was not that wasn't a time in which it was obvious to actually bring this to the table. Now we all agree on that. What is the role of responsible research and innovation? So in this image, I still want to go to the previous slide, if I'm good. These two images tell us a lot about what the lack of responsible research and innovation can do to the best intentions. Okay, on the left, I have a picture of plantation that is being deforested. Okay, so what does it come from? It comes from the first generation of biofuels. The first generation of biofuels, and I'm no expert in biofuels, but we're very efficient in terms of greenhouse gases. So per se, they were going to be a better choice compared to traditional fuels. What happened? The research that led to the first generation of biofuels lacked some attribute of responsible research and innovation, and therefore missed the big picture. And what happened? As traditional fuels price increases, more farmers went and invested in this first generation of biofuels, which meant deforestation. Now, deforestation is one of the biggest causes of greenhouse gases emissions. So you see that something that was started with the best intention actually ended up defeating the purposes. Luckily, now we have this new generation of biofuels and agri-fuels, and apologies if I'm not using the proper technical terminology, but I think I made my point clear. So we're no longer in that space. But if we've been thinking in terms of RRI, maybe something would have come off earlier. Now let's move to the right of the pictures. I think here I'm talking about digital technologies, not exactly in terms of manufacturing and internet of things and so on, but still I think it helps make the case. I think many of us in the audience are born in the 80s or later. So we might remember that time in the late 90s, early 2000s, in which the internet seemed to be this great opportunity for democracy. That was the technology that would have given a voice to everyone. That was the end of privilege when it came to information and knowledge. And what we happened to witness a few years down the line was actually the opposite. And this here you have a cloud of echo chambers in social media. far from generating an equal field in which information was available and which empowered the citizen, we saw that actually new mechanisms which were unpredictable at the early stages and certainly were not part of the narrative of the internet and new technology actually generate a more polarized society, a more unequal society, far from what we had imagined. So I think these two examples can help me talk about the importance of responsible research and innovation when it comes to digital and sustainability transition. So now we can move to the next slide. What does it mean? Well, we've already seen these attributes in the previous presentation, so I'll repeat them, but I think it's to no damage. Anticipation. We need to go beyond the technical elements of any technology or innovation that is being developed. We need to put it in context in the system in which the technology is gonna be used and try to understand what effects it can raise. Okay, so if we played with the economic theory of demand and supply for gases, maybe we could have seen that actually the first generation biofuel was going to generate an increase in green gas emission. Inclusions. Who are the actors to be included? Well, all of those that are involved in one way or another in the technology. So in the case of the first generation biofuel, maybe the opinion of farmers would have been good. Like, okay, maybe we could have asked them, what would you do if your land became very valuable as a sort of biofuel? Okay. In the case of the internet, well, then you could do field work with different types of users and see what happens. Reflexivity. Well, with that information, you need to incorporate that information in your way of doing research. Okay, it's not just an addition, a decoration. And reactivity, which is linked to reflexivity. Actually, you change something because of the information you have received. So as we embrace the digital transitions, which is what we should do so responsibly, which means paying attention, framing into its system, okay, going beyond the immediate confines, boundaries of a given technology or of a given innovation, and try to stretch our mind and think what could happen and to whom because of that information, and try and gather the opinion and impression of those who might be affected or involved. So I think that will put us in a better place to achieve the type of sustainability and digital transitions that we really want. And with that, I conclude my interaction, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Elisabetta. Yes, we are able to have comments or questions. My first comment is thank you very much for the two examples of biofuels and internet, because it has been very illustrative of what are the challenges in the two topics that we are going to discuss today. If we don't have I don't see anybody there, well, we will have later other possibilities to discuss. Thank you very much again. We go to the next part of the next block, let's say, of the workshop, where we will have 5 territories with different challenges in the twin transition. But first, we are going to have a presentation of them, and I think it's quite relevant to know more about them. So I will invite one by one to have a short profile of their presentation, and the first one is Overijssel. Please, Mr. Kuiper, Diskara.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Chairman, for inviting us and pronouncing the name correctly. Overijssel is called, it's beyond the river IJssel, which flows from the Rhine up to the Waddenzee, which is in the north. So, and over means beyond the river. That is a name which originated already in the in medieval times, when the Bishop of Utrecht, somewhere in the center of Holland, was the boss of this largely nature and agricultural land. In the red spot, you see one of the 12 provinces, and Holland is in total, it is, I guess, as big as or small as Emilia-Romagna or the Grand Est. So what I am discussing and what I realize is that we are talking about some kind of a micro region in this particular conference, with the province of Gelderland at the south of Overijssel. We do have, or we own a regional development company, which is a member of EURADA, and that is called Oost NL, or in English, East NL. So we are discussing something about East Netherlands, not about the Randstad, which is the West, which is formerly also called Holland, and not about the South, but somewhere in the East. In Overijssel, we have two regions, two sub-regions. One has its own name and is also very cultural, a tight knot. That is called Twente, with the University of Twente, and my co-speaker further on in the program. She will, she's part of that particular university. And in the West, that is West Overijssel, which has also its specific own names, but I will not tell about that. We have a population of 1 to 2 million people. That is about 6.5% of the Dutch population in total. We are, in all statistics, more or less the mean, statistically the mean province. And as you see, it's not so large according to the other speakers or regions in this particular conference. We see that our landscape or nature, it is still 60% agriculture, it is 40% agglomerations. So cities, municipalities, but it is that ratio is changing in the Netherlands. Also in the next centuries, because the east is a little bit higher than the sea level. And when the sea level rises, we will, if then almost more than half of the population which now lives in the west has to move on to the east. And from there, maybe also to Germany or to Scandinavia or whatever, but we will develop our own migrants, climate migrants is my guess. If we look at our socio-economic profile, the whole of the Netherlands is one of the strongest economies. It's a hardworking people, but we do not have in our province a real cluster. We do have clusters, but not in the same size as they are mentioned in the presentations which follow in other regions. So the only thing I can say is that industry, manufacturing industry by small and medium-sized enterprises are still one of the major employers in our region. But we also have a lot of commercial services, public services, and still quite some agricultural related industries. And if you translate that into one of the European rankings, we are somewhere 52, so around the 50th most innovation-minded regions. But as I said, 98% is SME, so with less than 250 employees. We have a little amount of larger companies. Most of them are multinational owned, and most of them are also lost their national control in the last 20 years. So we have to deal with these small and medium-sized enterprises, and that is quite a challenge, as everybody knows, and that's for which we also were invited by the EU to define regional specialization strategies. Well, then something about which is actual how we have a Dutch disease, one of many, but one of them is that we have plenty of natural gas in our as a source. We press that out of the earth, but we also decided to stop with that. But we are all intoxicated or the national gas infrastructure to warm our houses is such large and elaborated that it will take at least one generation to get off that national gas grid. And the challenge is, are there any other sources to switch to? And that is quite another challenge in the greening part. Well, and as for digitalization, well, in Overijssel, we were one of the first regions where there was also fiber, glass fiber, up to the last farmhouse, somewhere at the bottom or at the borders of our region. So we have a pretty well-developed digital infrastructure. Digital services are also well known, and in the last 2 years with the corona, almost everybody could continue its work from home. So there is at large the digitalization that is on track. Yeah, the bigger challenges are here what to do with all these new applications which are available already, like artificial intelligence, and how is that affecting, for example, privacy. But we also see that our national machine bureaucracies have made big mistakes in the last few years, affecting people who made some minor fault in their tax administration, and for which they have been hunted down almost in the last 10 years. So that is quite a scandal, which has a lot to do with also the level of competence in digitalization in the national administration, and also narrowing down to regional or municipal administrations. So that is what I would like to tell to you as a kind of introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kuiper, because you gave us the vision of the assets that you have, and as well the challenge. So thank you very much, either in greening and digitalization. Let's go to Lower Austria. We have Simon and Anauer here with us.
Thank you, Esteban. Yes, I'm here. I hope you can hear and also see me, maybe. Also from my side, thank you very much for the invitation to this very interesting event. Yeah, as a brief introduction into Lower Austria, Austria is a federal country, maybe to start with that. And Lower Austria is 1 out of 9 provinces. We have quite independent provinces, so similar to Germany, with their own regional governments, regional parliaments, and also with a budget for their own economic policies and their own cluster policies, also to mention that right away. What is very characteristic for Lower Austria is it's the region around the capital city, Vienna, and that causes a lot of interdependencies with the capital, of course, not only in terms of traffic and commuters, but also in terms of innovation policies, economic policy. Also, when it comes to the population, so we have a quite heterogeneous landscape with a Bacon belt around Vienna, densely populated, and then sparsely populated regions along, especially along the former Iron Curtain, so towards the border to the Czech Republic and Slovakia, and with all the difficulties in terms of regional development. Traditionally, Lower Austria has a strong agriculture and forestry sector. Of course, also due to we were feeding the capital region. So we are traditionally an agricultural region. However, in the last decades, a lot of efforts were taken to also develop the high-tech infrastructure and the research base in the region, which is again due to the fact that all the big universities and the research base in Austria is located in Vienna, is quite a difficult thing to do. So you have to find niches, areas where you can create critical mass by really focusing on specific technologies and specific know-how in the region. And we do that through so-called technopoles, so specialized technology centers combining tertiary level education, research, and specialized companies in specific technology niches, but also through clusters. And I will come back to that in a minute. And then one last point to mention here as a general introduction is the company structure in our region. We have a quite high ratio of one-person companies. So also we have about more than 98% SMEs, but among those SMEs, the by far largest groups is actually self-employed people. then 27% very small companies, 7% SMEs, and only 0.2% large companies. However, and that's also important for our innovation activities and important for the clusters, there are still a lot of family-owned or companies controlled within the country. So the companies to work with in innovation activities. So in general, we have a quite heterogeneous economic landscape. However, and now I would ask you to turn to the next slide, please. However, we do have relative fields of economic strength, namely in the field of food, I mentioned that already, but also in the field of construction, plastics and mechatronics. And we support this further specialization through cluster initiatives. Our cluster initiatives date back, actually, cluster policy dates back to the year 2000. So we have a track record of more than 20 years by now. We didn't start as early as our Catalan friends, but we do have some experience and also, of course, changes and adaptations over time. Why I also mention the clusters here is because they are an integral core part of our smart specialization. Not only that we try to foster this economic fields of strength, but all the clusters are also the cluster management teams together with their members, their partners. They are asked to contribute to really more detailed specialization within the region by identifying focus topics together. Based on trends, based on needs of the economy, but not only based on the need of single companies. They also have to have always a view on the value added for the region in total. So there is a very close connection between the regional economic policy, the policy makers, the cluster managers as a translator between policy and economy, and then of course the cluster members. And you can see here our 4 current cluster initiatives. Quite large, quite big networks, also compared to other European regions. And all of them, as I mentioned, defined their focus topics. And as you can also see, green transition is reflected in the focus topics in actually all the 4 clusters. Of course, in the field of green building, so renewable construction materials is at the core from the very beginning in this cluster. Also in the food cluster, there are a lot of projects going on in the field of avoiding food waste, but also in the field of bio-based packaging, for example, and more climate adaptation. Also using digital tools, by the way. Also all the 4 clusters contribute to the digital transformation in our region, working very closely together with the companies.
Thank you, Simone, for bringing us the structure, the challenge, and as well the cluster and the technopoles. I think are very good tools. So as well, very good problem approach and solutions. So let's travel to the north, well, not north or center Italy, I never know. Emilia-Romagna, Cristian Mancinone is coming here, one of the leading regions in Italy.
Yes, thanks all. I'm Cristian Mancinone from the Regional Development Agency in Emilia-Romagna, which is ARTER. So thank you for inviting me to discuss about those interesting topics. In particular, we are working in the framework of TeRRItoria on RRI insertion within the smart specialization strategy. And we'll talk about this later on. So some facts and figures about our region. We have a total population of almost 4.5 million inhabitants, and we are basically a manufacturing region. So 27% of enterprises in the region are in manufacturing sector. So the industry is a leading role in the region, and our export is one of the most advanced in Italy. We have more than 13%. More than the 13% of export in Italy are from Emilia-Romagna. So as you can understand, we are really leading region in Italy. Regarding regional innovation scoreboard at European level, we are ranked 76. So we are the first region in Italy. we are a strong innovator. One thing that I can say related even the facts of the aspect of RRI that we will be talking about later, Emilia-Romagna has even a higher level of social cohesion with respect to other Italian regions. So this is, in my opinion, really important. And we are the first region in Italy for the efficiency of health system. And I think that this contributes to the definition of a sound twin transition in terms of both of digital, green, but even social cohesion and social, transition. So we are just not looking to digital and green, but to a just transition, which is one of the most interesting things that we are facing in our smart facilitation strategy. So what else can you say? We have a high level of GDP per capita and a really high level of respect to the Italian level of R&D expenditure. We have more than 30,000 people involved in research and innovation, and we have more than 150,000 students in the seven regional universities. The region has a really differentiation between inner areas, mountain areas, and the central part of the region, which is located on the Via Emilia, which is a way that connects the western part to the eastern part of the region. Other sector which are really important is the agri-food industry. We have many services and tourism industries and culture and fashion, but really the leading one is manufacturing. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, so, many information in this slide I know, but it's just to understand how the knowledge triangle and the knowledge triangle, which we would like to lead to a quadrupleic or quintupleic model, but in this moment it works in this way. So we as a regional development agency are like the orchestrator of this wonderful and complex innovation ecosystem. So we have 7 clusters, and you can see which are they are based on the main industrial sector and service sector in our region. Then we have an association which is working on big data, and we have a motor vehicle university because automotive is one of the leading sector in export in Emilia-Romagna. Those clusters and those associations are the way to make this kind of anticipation in terms of responsible research and innovation, and they work together with training centers and industries and enterprises to define the next wave of innovation in Emilia-Romagna. We, as an orchestrator of this governance ecosystem, we have developed different services and skills, and we coordinate all these services and skills, mainly dedicated through the high technology network, which is a network of some 100 laboratories and innovation centers throughout the region, and through the network of the 10 technopoles and the 10 open labs, which are like living labs in the main regional cities. Then one last thing that I could say is that we are working to define a new kind of governance scheme through the smart specialization strategies in order to define a better way of collaborating between civil society, like social innovators, we call it this way, and normal traditional innovators. So I think that's all for the first part of the presentation.
Thank you, Christian. We take your first slide as well, that you are the first one in social cohesion, and at the same time very advanced on your industry and as well in the knowledge in a complex ecosystem to support the enterprise. And thank you very much for the good presentations. So the next one is Monsieur Jean-Jacques Bernardini from the Development Agency of Organise. Bonjour.
Bonjour. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Esteban, for your kind invitations and the opportunity to introduce Région Grand Est and also the project we joined 2 years ago, that DigiTeRRI, which is one of the project combining the question of digitalization with the question of RRI. So Grand Est is a very large region from Paris to the Swiss border. As you mentioned, it's a new region. In fact, these regions gather 3 sub-regions. The first one is Alsace, with Strasbourg, and I'm located in Strasbourg, Lorraine in the center, and Champagne-Ardenne, you know all the Champagne vine. So it's a new region set up in 2015. It's a very interesting region because we are a transnational region. We have many transnational cooperations because we have more than 700 kilometers borders with Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany, and Switzerland. So we are well plugged with all these regions and countries. We are a very traditional, old traditional industrial regions, in which mechanics is very important. We have several, many automotive manufacturers and suppliers. So that's traditional industry. It's very important for us, but we are also regions with a strong agriculture, and in which it reflects the fact that, in fact, in these regions, you have urban areas with large cities like Strasbourg, Metz, Nancy, Reims, for example, but you have also rural areas. And then this is combinations, and as mentioned by the first speaker, we have a sort of urban territory. So it's very interesting to integrate this to understand what is Région Grand Est. So that's our regions. The population is 5.5 million inhabitants. I mentioned that the importance of industry and services. The GDP in our regions is 155 billion euros. It represents around 13% of the French exportations. So that we are also regions in which the industry is strong, and then with many exportations, and especially towards the neighbors as Germany. Next slide, please. For the next slide, in fact, as research innovation, it's also a characteristic in our regions. We have 5 universities with 5 Nobel Prize winners, still active in chemistry and medicines. And the many public research centers, it represents more than 11,000 researchers and 200,000 students. So that's we have 1.5 of the GDP invested in public research center. It's also a characteristic of our territory, and in which we have laboratories and research centers focused on the topics of today, so that the digital and the green transitions. For example, for the digital transitions, we have a big laboratory in RIA, in Nancy, specialized in artificial intelligence. For example, then we have other laboratories focused on green transition, for example, production of renewable energy, for example. So for the innovation maturity, that we are considered by European Commission as moderate, and we have neighbors that are considered as strong innovation or innovation leader, as for example Baden-Württemberg. And for the regional policies, for several years, that in fact there are strong focus of the regional policies on digitalizations and green transformation, and also industrial transition. So in fact, we are facing the same challenges than many other regions, that we have to accelerate the digitalization of industry, and especially the small and medium companies. But also we have to integrate the green revolutions. And then the industry is in fact the perfect example of the type of stakeholders that have to integrate at the same moments the green revolutions and then the digitalization. So that's it's one of the main challenge we are facing. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Jean-Jacques, for the good presentation. I take out that you have a complex governance because you merge a lot of things together in a very diverse environment. But during the last year, you have succeeded with a big border with your neighbor countries, and as well big laboratories, and with a lot of research outcomes, as you could see in the slide, and a comprehensive innovation strategy. Thank you very much. So the last territory that we are going to introduce is B30 from Barcelona, and we have Xavier Ariño with us. Bon dia.
Bon dia. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me. I have to say that I'm a member of the academy, so of the Universitat Autònoma of Barcelona. So I'm not so expert as my colleagues concerning regional development. But now here I'm acting as a representative of the B30 territory, and in fact the B30 has been the place where we have focused our pilot in the SeeRRI project. But what is exactly the B30? The B30 territory is located in Catalonia in a very strategic place in the middle of one of the main communication routes connecting the south and north of Europe. And the name of B30 is the name of a former regional road, and now is a motorway. But one of the interesting aspects of the B30 is that it is not a county, it is not an administrative region, it is just a point on the map, 500 square kilometers. It is a bottom-up initiative of 23 municipalities sharing many socio-economic similarities in addition to a geographical link. So it is a very homogeneous area. These municipalities, with the companies, with the universities, research and innovation centers, are a real research and innovation ecosystem. And it is rather an industrial ecosystem in which there is a very delicate balance among industry and traditional use of land. And this has led to deep concerns about sustainability. But some figures that I would like to highlight are the population. Despite that's a very small area, there is more than 1 million people and more than 30,000 businesses, most of them SMEs and micro companies. But one of the most relevant features of the B30 is the extraordinary potential of knowledge generation. In the B30, the Universitat Autònoma of Barcelona is the main driver, but there are other universities or parts of the other universities, secondary campuses. But also there are a lot of research and innovation centers and infrastructures. For example, the synchrotron, which is a first level European research facility. In the map that you can see red spots, they correspond to the main areas of knowledge generation. The main economic sectors are industry, with more than 30% of the gross added value of the B30, with some important companies in chemical, including pharma, in metal sector, including car industry, and agri-food and packaging. And another growing sector is the retail and commercial. And another point, another interesting element is the importance of the quaternary sector, knowledge economy, education, research, innovation, which are playing a relevant role in the development of the B30, with a high number of organizations and people employed, more than 70,000 people working in this quaternary sector. And talking about employment, in spite that this is a very industrial area, there is a slow shift from the primary to the secondary sector and to the tertiary. So especially in the commercial sector, this is important in our conception of this territory. And just to finish up, I would like to add that the green and circular economy is really a key axis for the B30 strategy. And there is a circular economic group which has been working since 2018 to promote the circular economy in the B30 area. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Xavier. To summarize, it's a knowledge pole, let's say, together with industry and very much connected with the Autonomous University of Barcelona. Thank you very much. And however, it has diversities, and we are going to have the opportunity to discuss with all the 5 panelists this type of things that is going to help us. Let's go now to after these good presentations, because you not only say the good things, but the challenge, let's continue with the challenge and dilemmas that we are going to face in the twin transition. So I will ask then to have this type of same presentation, brief presentation of what are your societal challenges and dilemmas. And we will have the first one of Isel, and I think is Anne Dijkstra in this case, or is it still Mr. Kuiper?
Let's do it together. I do the left one and you do the right one. The point is that the greening and digitalization, as is this put forward by the European Commission, is, yeah, of course, also to us well known. Combining those bigger trends with the policy schemes we have, we would like to address that around the example of sustainability in a kind of regional energy strategy. So you see in the middle or at the right hand side, you see a block with two topics: the economic innovation. That is more or less the legacy of, like in Lower Austria, 20 years of a continuing specialization, aligning top innovative research groups with companies in the area. And on the right-hand side, you see this society well-being, which is in the Netherlands a long tradition around welfare policy and things. And those two blocks have to come together. What we see is that the EFRD schemes and also the regional innovation strategy is still pretty much determined by this economic innovation goal setting, and also at that particular, with that particular angle appraised by both regional government politicians, but also by Brussels. So there's still a big cleavage with the right-hand side. And well, if you have a look at these trade-offs which we have to deal with, you see that from the RRS, the Regional Innovation Strategy perspective, that is not, it is necessary, but it's not sufficient to tackle things like regional energy strategy. And the most practical example is that we should first start with isolating our houses with quite technology proof of proven technologies, versus that some companies in our region want to make the next generation electrolyzer, which is a million project in which many regions at this moment find companies who want to do that. So what we try to do, and we also do that in the RRI to Scale project, but is to keep the regional approach alive, and also we try to target specialization jumps into these collaborative projects, field labs, demo projects. And as the government is involved, then we are experimenting with a startup and residence program, for example, for this energy technology development.
Yeah, and you spoke about the grid as well. I think, Ms. Anne, before, the grid of distribution of natural gas, that as well has to be provided.
The heating of houses is one of the biggest consumers of energy. Being a wetty, a nasty, rainy country with lower temperature than in the south. But the climate will solve that problem, because the best weather will come to us in the next 100 years. So maybe we don't need so much heating anymore. But at this moment, it's still a pretty large challenge to invest in.
Let's go to have a testimonial for Ms. Dijkstra.
Yeah, so I think maybe to add to Joost's story is that one important thing in the region is find a balance between bringing science into the region and also making sure that it addresses society's needs. So with the words of the RRI approach, to make it anticipative and inclusive as well, reflexive and also responsive. So there are, in the regional approach, there are methods to try to implement that. And I think we are also in other EU projects, you see developments there. But still, that is one of the challenges that Overijssel faces, to really balance, to really include society's well-being in the broader sense of responsible research and innovation into developing the economic, the innovation in the region as well.
Thank you very much. Very open and very challenge approach presentation. So I think we could go to Lower Austria, Simon Auenauer.
Yes, thank you. I decided to focus in this intervention on the green transition part, just due to the time restrictions, not to get lost too much. I would like to briefly come back to my previous intervention when I mentioned that actually green transition topics are part of the activities of the clusters, or were already part of the activities in the clusters in the past. Mainly because these topics came from the companies themselves. So there is this sustainability awareness, I would say, basically is there among the companies, and the clusters work with that already in the past. What I wanted to share with you here is rather new attempt to further foster this green transformation activities. It's a tool, a regional development tool, if I can say it like that, and a platform, as we call it, basically a person within the regional development agency that is has dedicated its work to foster green transformation and circular bioeconomy by finding synergies between the ongoing activities, by further connecting actors, innovation actors in the region, but also reaching out to new stakeholders. So addressing the RRI aspect of public engagement, really with the dedicated task to connect to new stakeholders within the region, to connect to national strategies and activities, and also to increase international visibility and help initiate international collaboration in 3 core areas as we define them: circular economy, renewable resources, which is traditionally very strong in our region, and then maybe the hardest task, we call it climate change technology. So that means innovations that help to reduce CO2 emissions. Esteban, you mentioned also that we should speak about critical aspects, right? So I think we are on the way, on track to further work and even more boost green transformation activities in our region. However, we learned in the SeeRRI project that actually what still needs more to be developed, and we learned some tools, but it really takes time and a lot of personal engagement. It's a very individual learning in many cases. I also noticed we have to really learn about tools, how to organize that, how to organize higher public engagement, how to reach out to civil society actors that we have not worked with in the past. And then also we learned about foresight processes to really also discuss, well, this is not only about technologies in the field of bioeconomy. Elisabetta mentioned the biofuel discussion, but then also in more detail, what are actually the implications of that new technology. And there is still a lot to be learned and to develop and to be diffused into the region.
Thank you, Simone, because I agree that the challenge, thank you for your humble presentation, because I agree that challenge for development agencies and regional authorities is to increase the citizen engagement and to bring the civil society to our strategies. In some cases, we were very technocrats, or thinking only in our companies, cluster, and the knowledge triangle and things like that. So really good approach to continue the dialogue and the discussion. Thank you very much. So a very good specialist on citizen engagement and civil society engagement is Cristian Mancinone, and we will have a presentation from Emilia Romagna.
Yes, I totally agree with what previous speaker told about the importance of involving civil society. I will say in implementing the quintuple model, because the quadruple no more is something that still is not implemented in our regions, maybe, but it's no more the right one. So we have to deal with the socio-technical and socio-economic aspect of research and innovation. So basically what we're trying to do, because we are really, if we are leading the region in other things, we are really at the beginning in this thing of including people in research and innovation. This is basically the 4 axes through which the regional program have been built in the last 1 year and a half. So on Monday, regional programs have been approved by the regional government, and we will have to see what will happen next. I will show you later the new smart facilitation strategy that has been built on challenges. But what is important, I think, is the fact that the community making, the sense of community, the citizen participation is at the very center of the policies that the region is trying to design for the next future. So if we have a look at this slide, we see that competitiveness and investment in human capital, green transition, and social cohesion are not possible without really involving people in defining policy processes which are co-created and co-designed. So what we will try to do, and this is really thanks to the TeRRItoria project, is to try to implement this co-design process. Passing through this and going to the twin transition, what we're facing in this region is, so the main thing is that we see transition from an infrastructural point of view. So we have been dealing with investment in infrastructure, in research infrastructure for the past 20 years. So we have been using the Regional Development Fund basically to develop big infrastructures in all the region, but we have maybe not yet all the competencies to use these infrastructures and to go through societal challenges thanks to these infrastructures. So basically, technopoles are not dealing with the territorial challenges, and so clusters have begun to deal with some territorial challenges in the last 2 years. We have basically this. We have been establishing this new way of collaborating with stakeholders, which is called the pact. So the first pact for work has been designed as a governance structures to involve all different partners in designing regional policies. The first one was the pact for work, and I would say pact for good work. So the region would like to be able to give a good work, a decent work to all the people in the region. Still, we have one of the lower unemployment rate at national level. And what happened in the last 2 years is that the Pact for Work gained the climate part too. So this pact has defines the main regional strategies and the main regional priorities in order to have a just transformation, a climate change related transformation in a regional policy. On the other part, for what regards the digital transition, at the moment we are really building the next big data technopole in Bologna, which will be one of the most advanced research and innovation infrastructure in Italy, I will say in Europe. The technopole includes, because it is yet open, the European Weather Forecast Center. So we'll have really a huge infrastructure for data collection and data analysis at regional level, but still we need challenges. We have to connect challenges from territories that can use this data not only for making assumption, but for answering to real challenges. So there is a need to find the translators, which means people which are aware of territorial challenges, which are data analysts, which are really data engineers that can use this data for for local challenges, for solving local challenges together with the innovation ecosystem. So basically, I see this problem in twin transition, so which is basically passing from infrastructures and big use of technology to deal with real and everyday societal challenges at local level.
Thank you, Christian, for the concluding words of going from infrastructure to societal challenge, and as well for your reflection about data, because it's the perfect introduction to the next speaker. Jean-Jacques Bernardini is one specialist on digitalization, and I'm sure that among his dilemmas and challenge will be data and other the things connected with digitalization.
This is perfectly right. In fact, I mentioned in the first part of my presentation that we are regions with the traditional industry. And in fact, these industries are facing two sub-challenges: digitalizations and the green transformation. And the challenge for us is how to combine both in order that at the end, the industries will maintain a high level of competitiveness. Because behind economical developments, we are discussing also employment. And then you know that traditional industries, they employ many people. So this is also another challenges. And in fact, to succeed, that we need to combine, so that's to identify the needs in the companies, to have a clear cartography of the different offer of solutions, and offer of solutions includes, in fact, universities, labs, and also private companies. And then you need to imagine, set up, and implement the policies. Okay, and we are discussing also about quadriplegics, and then you don't have to forget the people. Because, for example, that when we are discussing about Industry 4.0 and related to the industrial transformation, that's 4.0. It's because it's 4.0 plus the people, and then you need to consider the people. So it's very complex system, and then you need to organize the ecosystems and not to avoid a branch of the helix. Then you need to have on board, of course, the local authorities, the regional authorities that will define some strategies and related program to implement these strategies, the companies, the societies, and the intermediaries like our innovation agency, but also the clusters, just for examples. So that's, you need to work very hard, and then to use also the opportunities offered by the European programs. And then we are in 21, and as mentioned by my colleagues from Emilia-Romagna, for example, we are working also on the setting up of the new S3 smart specialization strategy that will be useful to use the famous ERDF funds. So I think that there are many challenges. And just to understand that the problematics, that in fact, when we are speaking about digitalization, it's not to integrate high-techs like, for example, and artificial intelligence in the companies, but it's also to digitalize, I call it digitalization 2.0 of small and medium companies that, for example, will integrate for the first time a ERP system. And for the green transformations, there are very important topics like, for example, circular economy. And it's a very important topic for us. But also we have the question of the transformations of the energy production systems in our regions, because last year we closed atomic plant production, electricity plants in Fessenheim. And also we are facing the closure of one of the last energy production plant using coal, for example. So that in fact that we have to work on the both aspects, and then to implement the different policies. like, for example, the S3, I mentioned it. And for the question of the ecosystem, it's also another challenge that we identified that the green transition, the digital transition are important. And then we are working with all the regional stakeholders on setting up our virtual institutes in which we can organize the ecosystems and relationships between the different stakeholders in order at the end that we can accelerate digital transformation and green transformation of the companies in order that they will increase their level of competitiveness, but without forget that we have to do it considering inclusion, for example, and for digital transformation in our region, it's also a challenge, is how to train people that could be integrated in companies that will offer digital solutions or in companies that will integrate digitalization. Thanks.
Thanks to you for bringing the skills on digitalization topic, and as well the question that we didn't mention of closure of a big installation of energy producer and the surrounding impact in the economies of the territories and the need to find new activities. So let's go to B30 in Catalonia. Xavier, what are your challenges, dilemmas?
Yeah.
What worries you?
As I previously said, in the B30, there is a delicate balance among industrial and traditional use of land, and it has led to deep concerns about sustainability. And I have to say that in last years, the landscape has been strongly transformed, and green areas are constantly being converted to other land uses. In this sense, the question is on growth or not growth. Should we keep growing and growing those urban and industrial areas? This debate in the territory, I think that should take place as soon as possible. Regarding the industrial transition, digital and green transition, in the B30, there are 3 sectors of special interest. Metal sector, including automotive sector, agro-food and packaging, and chemicals in a broad sense. In these sectors, there are many opportunities to apply circular economy and concepts of Industry 5.0. In fact, and according to a recent report of the group working on circular economy in the B30, these are the sectors with highest index of circularity. However, the first initiatives that we have been carrying out related to the green and digital transition are revealing that, on one hand, there is a real lack of interaction among stakeholders, particularly among industries. And this is a clear obstacle to apply circularity and symbiosis processes. On the other hand, a large number of small companies and family businesses will face with serious problems and probably could be out of the process. It is true that it is expected that there will be many opportunities for new businesses and new jobs for skilled people with these green and digital skills. But at the same time, we must assume that a high number of people are not prepared for this transition. And there is a gap between the skills demanded and the current profile of the workforce in the territory. Consequently, there are many challenges to tackle in the B30. One is, of course, this capacity building, providing knowledge and skills, providing a sense of awareness, provide infrastructures and services to accelerate the digital transformation of citizens, businesses, industry, and public administrations. But there are also other priorities related to the transformation of the ecosystem as a whole, in a holistic way. This transformation includes to promote this responsible and transformative innovation, engaging all the quadruple helix stakeholders in this process, aligning their interests with the societal needs, and transforming this linear model into a circular model, keeping the products and materials in use for longer and helping to regenerate the ecosystem. To do this process, we are implementing co-creation methodologies as a methodology that we call shared agendas for innovation, for social innovation and sustainability. We are using a network of social innovation labs extended in all the territory, combining top-down and bottom-up approaches, and also emphasizing on experimentation by using small local pilots and not only theoretical models. And in these pilots are being progressively include the active participation of citizens. That is that we call citizen science, and it's becoming very important in the V30 as a research activity. All this methodology has been developed during the SeeRRI project, and now we are implementing this methodology as part of the smart specialization strategy of the Catalonian region.
Thank you very much, Xavier, because you bring citizen science and the need to engage them in the planning process. We anticipate that the smart specialization strategy of Catalonia could be a good model. As well, many of the strategies of the people that are here on the same topic, for example, the one of Emilia-Romagna, very interesting as well. So let's go to the outcomes, to the good practice. You have been a very good panelist, very humble, very modest, saying what are the challenges. Now, be proud. What are the solutions? What are the contribution, the good practice that you consider that could be relevant for other territories in Europe or elsewhere? So I don't know if it is Joost or Anne who is going to present, or both. I like both as well. Eh?
We can do it both again.
Okay.
So I will start now, Joost. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Good. I think, what we try to do, at least in Overijssel, is to look both at the process and at the outcomes and try to find examples, implement examples of, for example, a continuous dialogue with the regional stakeholders. So we have more participation with civic entrepreneurs, one of the industry, one of the pillars of the quadruple helix. But also, for example, related to the process and a more reflective and responsive approach is the mirror group in the RIS3 policy strategy. So what they do is in the mirror group, there are a lot of people and they periodically review the policy and also advise for adjustments if needed. Well, that gives a little bit of reflection and it is possible then to anticipate the outcomes beforehand. On the other side, also quantitative monitoring on the outcomes can help to make innovation more inclusive and responsible. One example is the Afrospace 53 drone project, in which a kind of indicator was developed with which not only look at economic aspects of technical readiness levels of drones, but also on the societal aspects of readiness or the societal readiness levels, for example, by looking at ethical aspects and more social aspects and juridical aspects. And by the companies that develop drones can do that kind of instrument, follow the instrument and look at what levels their own drone project is, so they can ask for advice and see how they can improve responsible innovation in that way. And another example is strengthening the regional innovation ecosystems by means of networks and efficient use of resources by independent assessment. Joost, do you want to add?
Yeah, we have been quite modest with the amount of sheets from Overijssel. So to add something to what Anne said, the RIS policy perspective is dominant, is still dominant, because it are also the companies who co-invest in these European funds. So if you have to bring in society or citizens, then you need also professional organizations who can, for example, lead a project. And in the entrepreneurial discovery process, as it has been operationalized in our region, those professional organizations do not exist. So you have to do a lot about capacity building, and then it's a question if it's not more efficient that companies still lead the project or these kind of civic entrepreneurs. That is still a major question. I would also like to address that specifically to the Regional Development Company Association, EURADA, because I don't see that my colleagues from that regional development company have a clue of how to do that. Well, and then a second downside thing is that the RRS is a policy document. Policy documents tend to stay in the cover. The operational programs of EURADA, they are important, because that is the document in which also experts give their assessment about projects. So if you do not incorporate these RRI kind of arguments and conditions into the operational program, you're lost. That is something I would like to add. Thanks.
Thank you very much for the strong and powerful words. I think we should be proactive and establish really the channel, because in the past has been left to the public participation and public engagement like somehow spontaneously. So thank you very much for the things connected with measurements and your words, just about how to bring civil society there. We will take them into account. Thank you very much. So we could maybe discuss that later. So we would like to see what are the good things in Lower Austria. Simon?
Yes, I would like to highlight again two tools I picked, outputs of our learning in the SeeRRI project. The first one is actually an institutional change and an organizational change that was mentioned in the SeeRRI introduction already, that was what the project aimed for. Within our organization, within EcoPlus, a new position was created, position for a special agent for green transition, if we can say it like that. We call it technology evangelist internally also. So a person that is really taking care of initiating projects in the field of green transition, in the field of CO2 reduction. This colleague of mine has actually a very long experience as cluster manager of the plastics and the mechatronics cluster. But really through the SeeRRI process and the RRI training he received in that project, I think it would not have been possible without that project. He very strongly lobbied and succeeded in the end for getting this new position, working again horizontally for different sectors, but focusing on the CO2 reduction activities. And the second example I want to mention on the next slide is a change within the regional ecosystem, more specifically within the plastics value chain. So outside EcoPlus, but in the group of stakeholders, you have to know within the SeeRRI project, the challenge that we defined in the first year, and that was probably the hardest task to really better understand RRI and then to define the right challenge. We focused on the role of the plastics value chain for CO2 reduction. The challenge is actually a burning issue within the plastics industry, that the image of this industry is so very bad that the industry as such also faces severe problems, especially when it comes to skilled workforce. Nobody wants to study plastics technology anymore because this is a bad industry, and so it's really also difficult to find people. On the other hand, there are things going on. Sorry, I think we went too fast with the slides. We worked with this industry involving, as I mentioned, new stakeholders, students from the art university, just to give you one example, representatives of the media and so on. In these regional workshops, a really valuable discussion started in this SeeRRI project workshops. And in order to continue that, this outreach to civil society, to a better communication, and greater awareness of the industry, an association was founded called Austrian Carbon Cycle Circle, with the aim to reach out to civil society, to policymakers, to foster this discussion, but also, of course, to initiate relevant innovation projects with this forecast methodology that we learned in the SeeRRI project. Yeah, that
Thank
much.
you, Simone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the thing of technology evangelism and the promotion of the plastic industry and how you have established for the legacy of the project the Austrian Carbon Cycle, which is going to be very interesting. And we could discuss later on, because I think something like that to bring civil society is what was claimed by OverISL. So we will discuss that later. So the next one is Emilia Romagna, sorry.
So I'm proud to say that the responsible research and innovation gained attention within the smart specialization strategy. We have the final version of the strategies which has been validated by the European Commission. So we can say we have defined the strategy, and we have inserted part of the strategy within the ESF and the ERDF regional programs. And so as you can see, that the whole setting of the priority of the smart specialization strategy has been conducted through a participatory process. More than 300 people gave their view on the strategy documents, on the brief of the strategy documents. They have been involved in defining sectors, priorities, and other things beside the choices by the regional government. So it has been really a participatory process, and we have held this process through the regional open innovation platform, which is a web platform connecting different actors in the ecosystem. And we would like to be these cross-cutting principle, which is responsible research and innovation, like the others, being not only a principle, but being acted at in practice. So what we will do in the next 2-3 months, the end of the TeRRItoria project, is to try to co-design a grant scheme which will include the responsible research and innovation aspect within a possible grant scheme that can be included in the framework of the next ERDF. The second thing is that within the governance structure of the smart specialization strategy, there is a territorial level that has been included. So there are to be established some territorial coordination tables and territorial forum regarding the development and implementation of the smart specialization strategy, which will be constantly included in the entrepreneurial discovery process to renew and to adapt and even to anticipate the strategy outcomes and impacts for the next programming period. Next slide, please. This is the overall structure of the next smart specialization strategy for the region. So you can see in the left side the 7 principal industrial sectors, but the idea is no more to go through investment in sectors, but to go through investment in challenges. And the one that you can see that are connected with the 5 policy objectives by the European Commission are the challenges in which Emilia-Romagna will invest in the next future, in the next 7 years. I highlighted some of the challenges which are more near to my sector. I'm a social innovation expert, so I know that social innovation is a particular word, a particular thing related to innovation strategies. But what we would like to do is really to go through a challenge and mission approach to define how territorial innovation ecosystem can deal with those aspects. And the idea to go through this co-design of a policy of a grant scheme, is really to engage people in defining what could work, given rules, because we all know that the RDF has some strict rules regarding the use of funding in financing innovation, and so we have to be really aware of which are the rules and how we can avoid that rule can stop this RRI process in the new programming period. We will have another program at regional level related to digitalization, which is the program is called Data Valley Common Good. So we will use the data as a common good of all the people living in Emilia-Romagna, and the digital agenda will be constructed and integrated in the smart specialization strategy to make sure that all the people can have access to digital information and to digital infrastructure. So we are integrating all those aspects in the smart specialization strategy, and through this we will support the regional government in defining the right governance and governance scheme and the right implementing scheme, even through activating new hubs like a transformative innovation hub. This is what we are trying to establish.
Thank you, Christian. Let's go to Grand Est. Jean-Jacques, what are the good practice that you have in Grand Est to integrate RRI in your strategies?
Thank you, Esteban. This is really the challenge for us, but for us, it's for all the regions invited today. It's how to integrate the RRI in the different policies, existing and the new ones. And as mentioned by my colleague from Emilia-Romagna, there is an obvious link between RRI and the new smart specialization strategy. And we are doing the same job than in Emilia-Romagna. It's how to integrate RRI criteria in the S3. And in fact, as you know, that the S3, the idea when you are setting up the S3, it's how to integrate the citizens in the setting up of this very important policies. That's the first point. The second point is for the link between RRI and S3 is also how to integrate criteria that could be used to follow up the project funded by the EIDF. So that's another challenge. So that's this is the second one. And then for the S3, we have also we could have a link, because, for example, all issues related to inclusion, and you mentioned, Esteban, good practice. In fact, that's, I think, in our regions, we have a very ambitious policy in order to set up training schemes that are not traditional ones, okay? And with the objectives is how to attract people that are out of the classical training system, not in the universities or in the engineering schools, but how to attract people coming from rural areas or in the suburbs of cities in order to give them opportunity to be trained and then to find a job in the digital industry. Another way to make the link between RRI and the policies is also how to plug the RRI criteria with the organization or the reorganization of the ecosystems. At the moment in Région Grand Est, and I think that is very important to understand that what will be the next steps for the policies in our regions. We are working on the setting up of virtual institute. Virtual institute because it's not a building, but it's an ecosystem in which you have all the key stakeholders, companies, NGO, university, and so that's working on specific topic we are setting up one virtual institute focused on digitalization, another one focused on green transition, another one on the industrial transition, and then we have to make the link. And we just give you an example and could be considered as a good practice. For example, when a company apply for grants at regional level to integrate, for example, artificial intelligence technology in the companies, they have to explain how it fits with ethics criteria. So that this is a link between RRI and one topic, ethic, with the question of digitalizations, and we will do exactly the same for the green transition. Another example, it's the projects we are carrying out, which is the setting up of the Future European Digital Innovation Hub. And then for the innovation hubs that's focused on acceleration of digitalization of the companies, that we will integrate criteria like ethics, and then we focus support of efforts, for example, for the Pillar 3, focused on training, on non-traditional training systems that will increase inclusion of populations in the digital industry. And last but not least, that I mentioned previously, that we are strange regions because we have 700 kilometers borders with 4 countries. And then we have also to plug RRI with the cooperation programs, with the TeRRItoria programs. And then with all programs related to digital and green transitions, we will have to make the links between the RRI and the criteria of the RRI with the definitions of the new programs in which we will be involved in the next in the next year. So in fact, that's to conclude that it's clear that at the moment we are facing a challenge that combine the digital transformations and the green transformations. And then we can do it only if we consider that it's not only a question of technological developments, but which we have to integrate all the stakeholders in the systems, from the citizens to the universities, to the companies, to the clusters, and in order to do it without to forget that we are not only develop products, services, and processes, but we are doing to develop the regions, and then to allow that the people will find opportunities, jobs in the next years.
Thank you very much, Jean-Jacques. Let's go to Barcelona, to B30. Xavier, what are your good practice?
Well, first of all, I have to agree with Simon that SeeRRI has been a lever for important change, and in our case, in the B30 ecosystem, has been implementing the transition from a research and innovation ecosystem towards a responsible research and innovation ecosystem. And what does it mean for us? It means basically a radical change on the role of the agents in the system. They have to be aware of their role. They have to be strongly connected. They have to align their interest with the interest of the other agents, and aligning those interests toward common challenges and priorities for territory. This change of the ecosystem have implicit the dimensions of RRI, inclusion, anticipation, responsiveness, openness, sustainability, and a model of governance. This last point, the governance, is especially important for us because it's a key point to ensure that the proper development of the ecosystem, because we need a participatory governance to promote collective action and to coordinate this system. In this context was created 3-4 years ago the Hub B30. Hub B30 is a platform for the interaction, for the collaboration, to create a networked community through which the quadruple helix, so that researchers, citizens, industry, and public administration are working together to get several goals. Agree a common vision of the territory, to identify common territorial challenges, to identify the possible answers to these challenges, and always by means of co-creation and participative methodologies carried out in the open labs or social innovation labs that are spread in the territory. To do it, in the W30, we have applied the methodology of shared agendas for sustainability and social change. That methodology has been developed during this pilot in the SeeRRI project. In this process, the shared agendas, we have been working together with representatives of the quadruped helix with the objective of building a shared agenda, in this case, focused on the challenge of zero waste. And that means transforming the way that we are producing and consuming. The first step was to understand the systemic challenge and mapping the key stakeholders of an initiative that are in the W30, the territory. Then, when we have identified the key stakeholders and the initiative, we, after several workshops and meetings with local and regional stakeholders, we agree a common vision, identify those main challenges and define the priorities, providing actions to tackle these challenges. During this process, at the same time, we have been trying to understand why so many times, even when the many stakeholders are aware of the problem in the territory and are implementing strategies, plans, actions to address the challenges, the impact of many of these initiatives is much lower than expected. And there is no transformative impact in the territory. And this is still a challenge for us. Summarizing, the experience of this pilot has allowed us to develop this methodology of transformative shared agendas, which are based on a shared and systemic understanding of territorial challenges and provide a portfolio of actions to move all the system in the desired direction through collective actions. And this methodology will be the starting point for the next smart specialization strategy in Catalonia.
Thank you, Xavier. We have almost 15 minutes, a little bit more than 15 minutes for the dialogue, open dialogue among yourself. Like always, I know that because we organize this type of things, the dialogue will work very well at the end. So in the last 5 minutes, and we will not like to cut. But to facilitate the dialogue, I'm going to make a difficult question. Some people think that it could be good to have a law or to another regulation to make compulsory the citizen participation or citizen engagement in the policies. What is your point of view? Do we probably could make compulsory somehow to have a pathway, for example, developed by SeeRRI, where we have the challenges, strategies, and action co-created with the civil society? Do you think the next generation, the third one of smart specialization, should have something like that to involve the civil society there? I will ask to all of you, probably EURADA would like to say something because they have very clear vision about how to engage citizens. I remember that they spoke at the mirror group. Do we make the mirror group going to your practical case? Do you think we could expand your mirror group and make compulsory for all the European regions in order to ensure that there is a civil society participation in the strategies?
Yeah, Dutch people are not so diplomatic, so excuse me if I say the wrong words.
No, I like very much.
I think that the average citizen in our region is not interested in innovation policy. So and we are hardly able to activate the citizens for things they think the government should solve for them. So it's not that they are not interested in it. So the citizen science part as being a supporter for science, that is not a problem, but it's about the ability and the will to invest time and effort in something like innovation. In the end, it are not the citizens who pay the co-funding needed for any project. It are other organizations, cooperatives, for example, and they are at this moment lacking in our project portfolio. So I would hope for more participation of, well, say it, citizen cooperatives or municipalities who then represent the opinion expressed by the citizens in their town or in their village. So I'm very happy with the remarks made by B30 on these brunches. I think people like to eat and drink together, and then they come to solutions. But I'm very pessimistic about then the change in the project portfolio.
Can I add something as well?
Yes, of course. And this is free for everybody, so everybody can interrupt. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Yeah, when I was doing my PhD, I studied citizens' participation, but then for biotechnology and how people wanted to be engaged with it. And in other projects, I always I looked at participation and citizen participation. I think, in my view, and that's something what we try to do in Overijssel or in the RRI to Scale project, it is very much, it's very important to see at the local or the regional situation and look at specific small projects where you can ask people to participate or can get their interest, because people always have a lot of other activities to do, other interests as well. So people are interested in, you know, if you ask in general, they are interested in science and technology, they are interested in some aspects in the region, but not always have the time or the ability or the possibility to participate. But I think it doesn't mean that you shouldn't organize those activities, but you should try to do that very carefully and at very different levels and for different groups. And what I now saw in all the projects that were presented, of course, is that everyone does it already at a certain way in a certain situation. And I think that is good. We have to keep on doing that. Try to engage people in different levels. Also, sometimes consultation is sufficient and not always active participation at the decision level is needed. But you can, you know, vary that and do that in different projects. So I think the more smaller possibilities there are, the better.
I feel that people get lost with the big policies when we speak about the smart specialization. Thank you, Anne, because it's true when we speak about. However, we cannot leave to us, to be honest. So sometimes the development agencies, we think that we know everything and everybody, and it cannot be technocratic decision. And in particular, if we want to have the co-finance or co-investment. Simone, I don't want to follow the order, Simone, but anyway, I'm going to, you could interrupt yourselves. Simone, how you see that? How is the evolution?
I 100% agree what Joost and Anne said. I think it's really an issue of activating people and the compulsory. Well, in the end, it would be just a word, right? If the regulations would ask for more public engagement, because yeah, we can do it on various levels. But yeah, 100% agree with my the Overijssel colleagues. Also, I think you cannot call it smart specialization or even innovation policies if you work with the civil society. Because that's too abstract. But what we try to do, for example, is to work with municipalities and ask the population in small municipalities what they would like to change in the community life. So how to improve the life in their village through digital tools, for example. We call that sandpit. I don't know if that's the right term. Probably we also just copied it from somewhere. But to have this kind of workshops with people from the villages and with external experts, digital experts, and try to develop something together. It's just one example of several. As Anne said, you need to work on with different small steps towards this goal. But the top-down compulsory requirement. I don't think
you don't like it. Okay. Thank you, Simone. Christian raised the hand 2 times. So Christian, what are your vision? And by the way, is your smart specialization strategy in English? Christian, are you there?
Yeah. Well,
it's in English. First question, your smart specialization.
I don't know. I have to check. Sorry.
Okay.
Then,
because I want to read. Anyway, automatic translation work better and better.
Yeah, I think so, but I will check if we have an English version.
Yeah.
We have a short presentation in English, but I don't know the English version. So the first thing I would like to share is a phrase from Games of Thrones, which is you know nothing, just know, because it's more than 20 years that we map and talk and share things with territorial organization dealing with research and innovation, and they know nothing about their territories. This is a problem, I think. And the problem is that they always talk to their projects. So they have projects within their research laboratories, they have projects within the universities and industries. We funded more than 1 billion euros collaborative projects, 500,000 euros collaborative projects between industry and academia, industry and research labs. And we still don't know which is the impact of this project. So I would like to introduce 2 other elements. The first one is, and I really like I'm talking about shared agendas with Tatiana Fernandez from Catalonia. It's 3 years we are talking about that. And I really like the presentation from Javier regarding the implementation of the SeeRRI outcomes in your regions. It's really impressive, that kind of approach. In terms of sharing challenges, sharing what are the needs. And I think that this is the first thing to do. Going in the territories, we are not organized to go in the territories. We are starting now as a development agency, and we will have to activate or to fund some kind of territorial activation evangelist or something like this, beside the technology evangelist. The second thing is impact. How do we, and with Jean-Jacques, I think we have a talk in a previous event regarding these things. How do we measure and how do we share impact measurement of those strategies in our regions? Because I've seen that the National Resilience Recovery Program has included, and I've seen in some of your slides, the societal technology readiness. So the societal readiness level is a way to measure this kind of changes, but still the regional innovation scoreboard and other scoreboard in which regions are involved will be organized without including this cohesion, this social cohesion, or this impact, social and environmental impact measures. It will be not so easy to make the government change the way in which they design policies, because they have to follow those rules. So I think that there are no compulsory rules in terms of putting bottom-up approaches everywhere, but we need to change the rules in which we measure the impacts of those funds, because they are relevant for regional governments. So if I have to spend 3 billion euros in 7 years, I have to spend, but I have to be sure even to be able to measure the impact of those expenditures and not only the outputs.
Yeah, I think impact and traceability is good to at least show the relevance of the public participation. However, these are big numbers and it's very difficult to know who said what and why is important the relevance of the public participations. Thank you, Christian. Jean-Jacques, how you see that? Do you think your development agency could facilitate the public engagement for the regional strategies? How are you doing that in Grand Est?
Yeah, in fact, the Regional Innovation Agency is strongly linked to the regional governments. So the first thing. And I fully agree with what you mentioned, Christian, because in fact, we don't have to forget that all we are doing for people at the end. Because in fact, when we're discussing about how to increase the number of people trained in the digital, That's develop digital skills. It's finally that these people could find easily a job. How to accelerate digitalization of company. The objective is that the people will find or maintain their job in the industry. So that's, in fact, that's we are doing all the things are doing for the people. And the question is how to imagine these policies with the people. I like that's what's mentioned previously, but for me, which is very important, is the link with the local authorities, not only with the regional authorities, but with the metropolitan areas, with the local municipalities, in order to understand that's what is exactly the typology of the territory, the needs of the territory. And I think that we could do it as an innovation agency, because in fact that we have 7 locations, not only in Strasbourg, but in all the main cities, in order to have teams devoted to a territory. And these teams, their objective is to know perfectly the territory, to identify the trends, to identify the needs. And I like very much that the concept of technology evangelist. But I think that the technologies is not the alpha and the omega. And this is for me the link with the RRI. We have to be an evangelist in which we have to combine technology, but also values like ethics, like inclusions, that access to the science, dialogue, science, citizen. And I think that's it was for Christian, we mentioned it, that's okay, how to measure the impact of project, because in my region, like in Emilia-Romagna, that's the regional authorities, they fund a lot of projects between universities and companies, okay? But okay, that's what is the impact in the real life? Okay, you develop a technology, okay, fine. But this technology is useful or not, it is how it works in terms of ethics, of inclusion, that's many things. I think that my team organization, I will conclude with it, I think that we have a crucial role in order, because we are plugged with all the stakeholders of the ecosystems, but not forget that we are not working for us and the ecosystem, which is a sort of Leviathan, but that we are working for real people.
Thank you, Jean-Jacques. And I like as well the idea behind of proactivity as well, because sometimes we are relying on our desk and very centralized. This is the typical development agency. And with this, my region, and we don't have branches or people connecting with the civil society. Thank you very much. Shared agendas in B30. You are in SeeRRI a model for all the RRI people. And Xavier, you spoke about shared agendas for making better circularity. Do you think it's something that we could share with, is a good practice that is relevant for other people?
That is really a good question, because I think that even in the region of Catalonia, there are differences among sub-regions or counties, because every case is different, and maybe the same model cannot be applied. I think the model of the shared agendas is just an inspiring model to promote participation of the quadruple helix. For us, it's very useful because in the B30 as a model, we are a group of 23 municipalities, so we are working at municipal level. And I agree with has been already said. I think that the local engagement of citizens is easier than regional engagement, because people see that their participation has a direct impact on their lives, and it's very important. We need incentives to promote the participation of the citizens. So we can work at municipal level, and then we can extrapolate these ideas, these results, maybe at regional level. And I think that is what we are trying to do. Work at municipal level. We are being successful in changing municipal policies thanks to the participation of citizens, and maybe this can be a first step to spread these good practices at regional level in the S3, in the next X3 in Catalonia.
Thank you very much to all the panelists, because despite you are the best in class, to be honest, some people say that they are moderator innovators and things like that. You have given the two coins, or the two sides of the coins, the challenge and how you are overcoming that. So you have given a really comprehensive vision to all of us. Before saying goodbye, Thomas wants to make an announcement, and I will thank as well to the audience.
Thank you very much, Esteban. Thanks for all the speakers for the wonderful presentations. Just a short announcement. We will make a break, 30 minutes, so we will leave the Zoom link open. And then the University of Twente will have a training workshop. It's an online training workshop called Towards Responsible Innovation in a Nutshell. So those of you who are interested in staying, it is mostly addressed to public authorities, but of course anyone who is interested in participating can stay. So we will resume at 2:30.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for announcing it, and we look forward indeed to reconvene in 30 minutes from now with an interactive session lasting for about 2 hours up until 3:30 it is in Central European time, focusing on responsible innovations, and we are proposing an co-creation approach for this. So look forward to catch up with you afterwards. Thank you so much.
So thank you everybody, and we see you in half an hour. Thank you very much to all of you. Bye bye.